Should you spend time on the Game Blitz in 2023? Impressions of this project are quite ambiguous, and the question of its relevance in the current year remains open. The answer is not that simple, but I will try to clarify this. Welcome everyone, you are on the Chroni Corner channel. Let's get started. So, the Blitz project has long been known in the online space. Frankly speaking, the game is not globally popular. Yes, many players from all over the world play it, but it does not cause the same hype as once did Fortnite, PUBG or GTA 5. However, this does not mean that the game is bad or unworthy of attention. Watch this video to the end to learn more about Blitz. Let's start with one of the main drawbacks: graphics. Even at the maximum settings, the graphics in the tanks do not impress, especially when compared with modern PC games. Blitz is clearly lagging behind, and even compared to classic tank games, it's in the background. Yes, the developers are trying to improve this aspect, gradually updating the visual quality of tanks, and all new tanks or branches immediately appear in an updated visual form. But if we look at things realistically, Blitz's graphics lag far behind modern projects, though, given the low system requirements and the ability to play on a mobile device, this is expected. But for PC, Blitz graphics are outdated. In theory, you can imagine that the entire project is transferred to a new engine, for example, the same Unreal Engine, and as a result, you get an incredibly beautiful game. I can imagine how high the quality of this game could be, but there are several reasons why I doubt that this will happen, at least in the near future. It's really a huge step that the developers need to take. Overall, these are just some theories, assumptions, and my own conjectures. For now, such is definitely not planned for the near future. Now let's move on to gameplay. If you put aside the occasional minor errors in aiming and controlling the tank, it can be argued that the game is quite well thought out. Maps are designed with dynamic gameplay in mind, their sizes are small, and the game overall progresses at a quite brisk pace. Most battles are designed for face-to-face combat, which quickly leads to direct clashes with the enemy and active firefights due to the small size of the maps. The presence of bots sometimes spoils the impression and shows a small number of active players. However, if you play in the evening and at medium or high levels, such problems will arise quite rarely. Overall, the gameplay is quite acceptable. I would also like to note that compared to World of Tanks, I prefer Blitz for its dynamics and less waiting time. This is indeed a huge plus, and it can be said that this is one of the key reasons why it deserves attention. Indeed, it's much more interesting and enjoyable to play when there are various skirmishes, shootouts, chases, and duels, rather than just waiting in the bushes, sipping beer, and waiting for something to happen. Of course, some people like and are quite satisfied with such gameplay, but I and many of you probably disagree. I even know people who have refused from World of Tanks because there is too much waiting. Therefore, we can confidently give a big plus to Blitz for its fast and exciting gameplay. I must discuss the topic of donations. Of course, any rational person understands that online games are created to make money, and it should be as stable as possible. My opinion might be somewhat subjective, but still, I will remind you that this is my channel, and I express my opinion here. I got the impression that wargaming's appetites are only increasing over time. More and more often, even at medium levels, tanks go into the negative after the battle, which clearly pushes towards real investments. The developers seem to have created a way out of this situation, offering the opportunity to increase the profitability of the tank, of course, not for free. The amount of silver in the game is also actively reduced due to the system of various vehicle upgrades, which are tightly tied to the chosen vehicle and cannot be transferred to another tank. Accordingly, when selling a pumped-up tank and buying the next one, all this burns out, and the price of consumables, which increases significantly with the level of technology, leaves no illusions. Obviously, the role of donations in Blitz is significant. Those players who strive for quick access to new content and do not want to worry about financial matters will undoubtedly feel the need for investments. But this does not mean that the game is inaccessible for those who prefer to play without additional expenses. Players ready to invest time and effort can play comfortably using only in-game currency, not real money. By tracking current offers, you can profitably replenish your hangar with good tanks at affordable prices. You can draw your own conclusions about this, and I will continue the review. A few words about the game's community. It's full of all sorts of characters, from extremely smart to those who are ready to quarrel over any minor incident in battle. It's important not to fall into this trap and not become one of them. Overall, I want to emphasize that World of Tanks Blitz has potential for growth, and I believe in it. It's clear that the project is being worked on. Regular updates, interface changes, the addition of new research branches, all this speaks of the active work of the developers. Playing World of Tanks Blitz, especially in the company of friends, really captivates. Of course, there are moments when everything goes not as you would like, and the impression of the game is spoiled. But then there are battles after which your hands shake, and your heart beats like a rabbit's, from the fact that it was you who managed to win the battle. It is such moments that make this game unforgettable. It's fair to say that in some aspects the game lags behind its competitors, but this doesn't prevent it from remaining relevant and continuing to delight players with new content. If you're ready to accept some of the shortcomings of this game, then I can confidently recommend it to you. Blitz gives a lot of emotions, and that's perhaps the most important thing. Tank battles can become a real passion, which is hard to give up. The game has a special atmosphere that lures you over and over again to join the battle. Perhaps sometimes you'll feel that the game annoys you so much that you're ready to give it up forever. Maybe you'll even delete it to forget about it for at least a week. But one beautiful evening you'll suddenly want to play a couple of battles, and you'll return to the game again. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I invite you to share in the comments what you love about World of Tanks Blitz, and what, on the contrary, irritates you. Perhaps you'll mention some points that I didn't touch on in my review. I will be happy to read your opinion. On this note, I'm finishing my review. Thank you for being with me. If you like the material, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to press the bell so you don't miss new videos. See you in the next video.